Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here, as always, by the man who I forgot to come up with an intro, Kyle. I'm sorry. Kyle, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Bruins up 1-0. Feeling good about hockey so far. Didn't win 7-3 though. How are you doing, man?
Our teams are off to a good start. I think we'll get into some hockey talk at the end of the show, probably. I think might have said more about the Leafs than the Lightning in that one.
Yeah, Toronto's just an unserious franchise. That's just how I feel.
Yeah, we can talk about we'll get into some hockey talk, maybe even some NBA talk if you want, given the craziness that went on to Draymond stuff towards the end of it. But first, in the NFL world, what we typically cover here, we have plenty to talk about. We are going to go over the top offensive players at each position, except for quarterbacks. We've already done a whole show on quarterbacks, so we're doing top 10 pass catchers. I've thrown in wide receivers and tight ends together, so top 10 pass catchers. Doesn't mean you have to be, I evaluate tight ends, even their blocking ability, that is included, but, people who are known for catching the football, then top 5 running backs, and we'll finish the show with top 5 offensive linemen. As after this, we will have given our thoughts on all of the main prospects here, Kyle.
Yes, we've gone through it all. You can go back and listen to our defense. You can go back and listen to our quarterback. Like you said, we're going to get into offense. And I don't know. I think it's a pretty interesting offensive class. Like, I don't know if there's how many superstars are going to come out of this class at any of these position groups. Like, I think there's one in particular you feel pretty good, might be the best in his position in the next couple of years. But outside of that, like, there's a lot of really solid prospects. Like, we're going to get into pass catchers here first. And doesn't it just feel like that every team should come away from this draft with 1 or 2 pass catchers? Just because there's so many, it feels like, especially at the top of this draft.
Interesting. I actually disagree. That's been talked about. I think this is a bad receiver class.
I don't think it's top heavy, but
That's
like
true.
Even then, I'm going through this list. Like I have 4 top 20 draft prospects in pass catchers, and then I have 2 more that I would have fringe first round. And then I have the next 4 on my list. That's our entire top 10 on my list that I'd probably have in the second round. And then I got a handful of more day 2 players.
Well, I mean, what the old thing is, like, if in the second or third round, just get a receiver, because like they just tend to hit at that point. It's like there always tends to be like 25 guys, of which like 10 end up being like legitimately good players. So definitely the depth is where things get interesting. Want to just jump into it?
Yeah, let's go right ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to start off number 10 on my list. I'm going Josh Downs out of North Carolina, someone who I think some people might have a little bit higher on their own list. Really shifty player. He's 21 years old, but he's 5'9", 171, and it's noticeable. You watch his tape, he looks like a small player, and because of that, I mean, he's not a blocker. He's also not incredibly fast. We're at a 4.48, so it's not like he has this burning speed. He's someone who I see as kind of a slot receiver who could potentially fill that role, but I just don't see him as an outside threat. So makes the list, but I'm not super high on Josh Downs.
I have him 7th on my list, and I mean, I agree with that. There may not be the superstar qualities of him, but like, I don't know, maybe because he's short and kind of slow, it's similarities. But like, could you just see this guy having a Julian Edelman like career?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's just really good in the league for 10 seasons or something like that, and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that guy was really impactful for a number of years. I could just see that kind of level from him. And, he put up a ton of production in North Carolina, which I don't know how much you take into it, but he just did a lot there. And I thought he was really impactful. And he just kind of has that. He's one of those guys that it's just the nose for getting open. He's really shifty. He's really good in his routes. And I think that's really going to help him at the next level.
Yeah, it could. I mean, wide receivers are hard, especially when it's me trying to evaluate them. I really missed a lot on wide receivers. So, I do agree that that's the type of player he is. That's his upside, is the Julian Edelman type. I tend to not really care about production just because I haven't seen evidence that it matters at the wide receiver position. We'll get to offensive line. Doesn't matter there. But, that stuff, like the PFF grades for wide receivers, I just watch tape for these guys. And his tape's good. Like, I think he'll be he just feels like a kind of he's just not an outside threat whatsoever. And that's actually, I think there's only, I'll say this right now, I think there's only one wide receiver I see as a true outside threat in this draft.
Yeah, I might kind of agree with that. Like, I think even my guys who are 2, 3, and 4, as far as just wide receiver or receivers, there's still probably slot guys. There's one guy I think that's kind of, I think he's going to go in the first round because he has the traits. I'm not sure if I don't think you're going to have him in your top 10, honestly. We'll talk about him after the fact. But I do think he might end up going in the first round because he has those outside receiver traits.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it. We can move on to number 9. Number 9, a guy who I think maybe could have some outside abilities here. I'm not sure, but he's just an interesting player out of Wake Forest. A.T. Perry is someone who I have number 9 on my list. A bit older, 23. He's 6'3", though, and he moves very well for his size at 200 pounds, 6'3", 4.47. Again, that's also not overly fast, but considering how much bigger he is, than Josh Downs, that's kind of what interests me about him. He mostly just ran deep routes at Wake Forest. Like, I still don't know what exactly to evaluate him, and he's I think he's a day 2 guy. That's kind of how I view him, but he's complete projection on the over to middle stuff, but he's someone who I could see working on the outside. Part of what makes, played at Wake Forest, right? And I just don't know. I don't know what to evaluate. All of his routes were just go down the field and try to get open. So, I don't know how that could work. And this is what makes receivers so difficult, but I think worth taking a flyer on.
Yeah, I have him on my honorable mention, but I really like him, and I was a fan of his in college. And once again, my honorable mention is probably going to be guys I view as third-round picks. But like you said, I mean, it's one of those gimmicky, Wake Forest runs one of those gimmicky offenses in college football where they just spam routes, spam guys open. And I mean, he was part of that offense. I mean, I go back and look at the Clemson game where he's going against some, this was kind of a down year for Clemson corners, but still some pretty highly regarded cornerbacks over at Clemson. And it's just every ball, what's his name? Sam Hartman threw up at him. He just caught every ball that way. And it was that entire game. He just dominated the outside of that field. So he has games like that in his belt where he can go up against just about anybody and make a catch.
Yeah, just an interesting prospect. He feels like someone the Steelers are going to draft in round 3, and he's going to be have a good 10-year career for him.
Yeah, exactly. That feels just about right. I mean, I think the ability to win on the outside is important in the NFL now, and he definitely has the ability to win on the outside.
Yeah. Although I guess, you bring that up, and that's kind of how I view it as well. But I'm going to play devil's advocate for both of us and say, with this new addition of kind of the 2 safety deep coverages sweeping the nation, is it possible that maybe, I'm just thinking out loud, is it possible we're overvaluing the winning on the outside aspect because that's maybe not as important now as it used to be?
No, I don't think so. Just because there are guys who there's still routes that are run down the outside of the field. You still have to win those battles. And I mean, if anything, it makes it even harder to find guys that win those battles because they are constantly, there's possibly 2 guys shadowing them in that spot. But the thing is that, the NFL is very cyclical. I think eventually what's going to happen is we're going to have a bunch of underneath offenses that could all of a sudden beat this 2 deep defense. And then all of a sudden the defense are going to adjust, and then the offense are going to have to adjust again.
Right.
I'm not going to say he's not built for this defense. He's going to find a way to be impactful if he's a good player. And that's just kind of the way I see it happening.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Let's move on to a tight end. I have 3 tight ends on this list. Tight end here at number 8, out of Georgia. How about Darnell Washington? This guy's a very unique player. 6'6", ran a 4.6 though at that height. Very moves very well for his size. 264 pounds. You should not be able to run a 6'4", or excuse me, you 6'4". Yeah, that's what you should be running at 264. You should not be able to run a 4.6 at that size. Moves very well. He's not really a route runner. And I also had some issues with him getting in position run blocking, which is, you think about a guy that, moves and is big, you want to be able to be a good run blocker. He's definitely someone that is definitely a trade C prospect, although had production in college as well in Georgia. He's someone who I like. And again, he's still a day 2 guy for me. I only have 5 of these players will be first round grades, but I like him.
Yeah, I have him 10th on my list, and it's just because of the traits. Someone this big, this strong, this fast comes around once in a blue moon, right? And that's kind of what you're banking on, is figuring that out. The issue is he's giving me OJ Howard vibes, just because there wasn't, there was some college production, but I'll be honest, I think most of his college production came in garbage time, just because he was the second, sometimes third tight end in that room. because I mean the guy who's going to be there next year is going to be awesome. But he was like the second or third tight end in the room, and he was the blocking tight end most of the time. Now he is physically dominant when he gets behind, like you said, when he gets his pad level right, when he hits guys square on, he is a physically dominant blocker. I think he could be a little sloppy at times, but yeah, I mean, I'm just worried about the OJ Howard vibes where you have this extremely physically talented person who we just haven't really seen be an awesome football player yet. And that's the thing I'm worried about. I do think he's going to go in the first round, though, because someone's going to buy in on that.
Yeah, I even had OJ Howard in my notes with him for that. Like, I see the comparison for sure. It's it. I have him as sort of a back half of the second round type of prospect. And again, it's part of this too. I think has to mention I'm not crazy about this draft class. So part of why I have him a little bit higher is because of that. But there's just he's just an interesting player.
Yeah, I mean, it just really kind of depends on what you're looking for, I feel like, because I think there's an interesting debate going on. I think everyone kind of has the same tight end as the number one tight end, but I feel like there's an interesting debate popping up between a player like Washington, and I think we're going to talk about him shortly, but, Michael Mayer for Notre Dame. And, I think it was really like a hot debate taking Washington in the first round at the combine because he's so impressive at the combine, where Mayer's not a combine guy, but he's a guy who has a ton of NFL or college football production, and he just plays football really well. And yes, he's not the most physically gifted player, but he plays the game so well and he's so smart. So I think that's going to be a pretty interesting debate on, do you take the traits or do you take the guy who kind of seems to have the football IQ down?
Yeah, very fascinating. And there were he is someone who you need to teach him he needs to learn how to get open with this stuff. I mean, a lot of his plays are when he's trying to get open like underneath, he just runs to there's plays where he runs like literally right next to a defender and then turns around. It's like, okay, that's not what you're supposed to do here, Washington.
Yeah. So I do think there's a learning curve there, but if someone's willing to be patient with him, I mean, obviously you could end up with one of the best tight ends in the class without a doubt.
Yeah. I agree. Let's move on. Nathaniel Dell, number 7, out of Houston, a guy who he only runs a 4.49, but he gets up to that 4.49 immediately. His acceleration is what's interesting about him. Just 5'8", 165 pounds is what he's listed at, and he's 23 years old. I still don't have him as a first round player, but like a mid-second rounder feels about right for me as someone who could, again, is he going to win on the outside with a 4.49 and only being 5'8"? I wouldn't bank on it, but could he do some nice things over the middle? I think it's worth taking a chance on with a day 2 pick.
Yeah. I have him 9th on my list, and yeah, like you were saying, I think he gets separation really well for, like you said, a guy who's not necessarily really fast, which is somewhat impressive. But yeah, I mean, he gets separation, he gets that space, and then he's able to make the catch too. So I'm a big fan of his. I like him as a round 2 pick, probably late round 2. But yeah, I mean, I think there's something there that could be really special.
Yeah, and kind of what maybe even works against him a little bit is there's so many of these types of players I feel like in this draft. This is the all slot receiver draft, it feels like, for whatever reason.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, the 2 of the top 3 guys that I talked about are probably slot guys for sure. So, I mean, it's tough. It's going to be an interesting draft for these guys.
Yeah, but I could see Dell being kind of like at his best, like a Christian Kirk type of someone who can still win down the field, but sort of as a slot guy.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, Kirk's also not the fastest guy too, so I think the comparison kind of works. I mean, it really just kind of depends on, he's so quick off the line of scrimmage, like you were saying, but without that top end speed that's kind of elite, can he continue to do that at the NFL level? I think that's the question he's going to have to answer.
Yeah, and that's what concerns me, and that's why I don't quite have him as a first rounder. Let's talk about someone else I don't have as a first rounder. This might be a bit of a hot take because I think most people do have him as a first rounder. Jordan Addison out of USC. Most do have him as a first rounder, but again, he kind of feels similarly to some of these other guys. Another, 5'11", 173, another smaller guy who runs a 4.49. That's pretty much where you can. That's what they all do. They're basically all around there. These receivers. He can win out. I will say about Addison. And why I have him higher than some of those other guys is he wins on the outside better than you would think when you read 5'11", 4.49. Like, he can do that, and there is opportunities for it. He is shifty, but not insanely so, which you would probably want for a smaller receiver. And I when I watched him at USC, and again, all I care about is the tape. That's all I watch. I didn't feel like he got open consistently enough to feel comfortable taking him in round one. But again, receivers are so important. Reaching on a receiver, I don't really have an issue with, but I have him as a second round talent.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of my fringe first round guys. I have him fifth on my list, and I don't know, like he has a little bit of that CD Lamb to me that it's just like, okay, I appreciate a guy who just always kind of feels open. And it was a little bit less at USC, but I thought at Pittsburgh especially, which was surprising because at Pitt, he was basically the guy where you couldn't necessarily account for him at all times at USC. But he was the guy at Pitt, and it felt like he was always open. And I know he battled some injury stuff last year, so I think that played a little bit of a part in it. But yeah, I mean, I just appreciate a guy who's always in the right space. And it seems like he's always in the right space and ready to catch a football. So, I mean, I get, he's not the physically most imposing receiver. He's not the fastest. He's not the strongest. He's probably not going to be a great yak guy, I'll be honest. But at the same time, there's something about like, the Lockett style of let me just get to my space, get open and catch the ball. And I feel like he has a little bit of that to his game.
Yeah, I can see it. I would be a little bit, I guess my question is, why did we see the drop off from Pitt to USC? Why did he, I feel like the tape was worse and the numbers were significantly worse once he went from 2021 to 2022.
Well, like I said, I think he was dealing with I want to say it was a hamstring thing. I don't remember exactly. I think it was a hamstring thing last year that kind of lingered for a lot of the season. And I don't know that I can't explain it perfectly, but I do think there is something to that Lincoln Riley offense. Sometimes, there are some like dummy routes, you're not always going to get the ball. And especially on that offense, when they had multiple guys they'd go at, it just felt like that, there was plays that like he knew he wasn't getting the ball and he wasn't going to run full speed for it. I don't know exactly what it could be, but that feels like it played a part in me, not to mention the injury.
Fair enough. Interesting prospect though.
Yeah. I mean, this is definitely like, it feels like he is the number one guy. Do you rate traits or do you rate production? Because there's a ton of production. I mean, obviously, he won the Biletnikoff as a junior. So, I mean, he has a ton of stuff going for him. It just kind of depends on what do you rate as far as a college prospect.
Yeah. Listen, if he did that as an edge rusher, I'd be saying first edge rusher in the class. But that, just different position.
Yeah, for sure. So,
let's move on. Another tight end here at number 5. We're at the top 5, and we're at the players who I have first-round grades on. And again, I have less than 31 first-round grades, so it's a compliment to get a first-round grade in this draft class from me, except it's from me, so how much do you take into account? But still, I'm going to go with Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. Michael Mayer, very, I feel like I say everyone's a unique prospect, but he is a very unique prospect. I mean, he, I kind of put in my notes as, could he be this year's Kyle Hamilton in a sense of like, if he's used perfectly, feels like he could be a star, but, I don't think he's over explosive, but he's a great blocker. I mean, he's, very big. He's, 6'4", 249, but plays bigger. Ran a 4.7, only 21 years old, and had great production in college with a 92.5 PFF grade, which, for tight ends, that does matter a little bit. Wide receivers, I don't really care, but for tight ends, I do. A lot to like about Michael Mayer.
Yeah, I have him 6th, and I have him as a fringe first rounder as well. You and I had Addison and Mayer flipped basically. I really like Mayer. I'm a big fan of his, and like I said, I was talking. I brought it up with the Washington thing. He's not the biggest, he's not the strongest, he's not the fastest tight end in the world. He's not going to blow you away physically, but at the same time, like, goddamn, I just love a guy who just seems to love football. And it seems like when he plays, he loves football, right? Like, it just seems like he's always ready to catch. He's ready to block. He's willing to do, it seems like, whatever it takes for his team to win games. And he was the guy at Notre Dame because they had some god-awful receivers this year. And he still was finding ways to get open basically every play. I mean, it was remarkable stuff what he was doing for that offense, which was, I mean, if they didn't have him on offense, they'd be a bottom 30 offense in college football, which is saying something for Notre Dame.
Kyle, they were running jet sweeps with him. They were giving him the ball on jet sweeps. That's how much he was a part of their offense.
And he's not even like a physically impressive. It's not like, it's
Right.
not like giving like a 4-3 guy, a
Hmm.
jet sweep. He is not that fast, and they were still doing it. They just needed to get the ball in his hands. It just felt like he was like, it's like having one of those volume scorers in the NBA when they get hot.
Hmm.
And it's just like, we got to get this guy hot right away.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and again, yeah, you're right. I mean, he just feels like, oh yeah, he's a. If someone photoshopped all the jerseys, so you couldn't tell what team he played for, you'd be like, oh, he's a Notre Dame tight end.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, he definitely has the vibe for it. I guess the one thing is like, is the game physically just too much for him at the next level? That's probably the thing I'm worried about, right?
Yeah. I could see it. I really could. I do want. I mean, tight ends are difficult, and I think there's a reasonable question as to should you draft a tight end in the first round. It seems like they don't have a huge hit rate, but I don't know. To me, I feel pretty confident he's going to be in the league for a while.
Yeah, I think I'm willing to go there too. I like him. I'm a big fan.
But the question is he in the league for a while as like a solid tight end who'd ever like is a real difference maker?
Yeah. Yeah. Is he going to be, the next Mark Andrews, or is he going to be like the next Greg Olson? I mean, Greg Olson would be
Yeah,
awesome.
he was great.
But
That'd
yeah,
be either
I'm
way. I
trying to
think
think what is a better example here for what I'm trying to get at.
I don't know, like
Uh,
maybe John New Smith, perhaps.
yeah, sure. That would
Hmm.
work.
Yeah, there's someone who's just like maybe has 1 or 2 good years and then is mostly solid.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that's fair. Hopefully, he doesn't get paid as much as John Smith, so he can get traded.
Right. Hey, maybe if the Patriots have money when he becomes a free agent.
Oh boy, let's hope not.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. 4 players left. I think, reasonable minds can really differ with these top 4. I think that people are going to have, any combination of these 4 left. 3 receivers, 1 tight end. I'm going Zay Flowers here at number 4. I like a lot of Zay Flowers' stuff. I think that, his footwork is very good. He plays, I think he plays big for his size. Again, another small guy listed at 5'9", 182 pounds. Runs a 4.4 though, so that's a 4.42, so low 4.4 as opposed to high 4.4, which is a little bit nicer. He is explosive. My comp for Zay Flowers is Hunter Renfrow, which it feels like that's very much what he does. Is he moves around, and they gave him the freedom to do a lot of work with the route running. Like they kind of let him make 17 different moves to try and get open, whereas a lot of receivers don't get that freedom. So definitely his highlights are very good, and I think they'd look even better if the quarterback would give him the ball. I think there's plenty of times when he got open and just the ball went somewhere else. But Zay Flowers, like him, not a top 3 pass catcher for me though.
Yeah, and I have him third. Keep in mind, like I said, I have all these guys in these top 4 in my top 20. I think we're pretty aligned with the top 4. I have them all in my top 20. I love Zay Flowers. I'm a big fan. And like you said, they were definitely willing to give him some chance to, create his own separation and have all the moves he could to get open. And the reason why is because they had bad quarterbacks, bad offense, and bad everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So, they had to get in the football basically at all times.
Right.
I love Zay Flowers. I don't want to make the Antonio Brown comparison because that's maybe the best receiver of the last 15 years besides
Mm-hmm.
Calvin Johnson. I mean, it's up for debate. I mean, he
Yeah,
was on that
Julio's in there,
track.
but he's in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, he's on that track. But I mean, there is a lot of Antonio Brown to his game. Antonio Brown wasn't the biggest guy either, but he's shifty. He's incredible in tight spaces. And I mean, it's another one of those guys. He is always open, it feels like. And he was the, when you played Boston College last year, he was the guy you circled on. He was the first, second, and third line of the scouting report. And he still got open all the time, it felt like. And I just appreciate a player like that. And I think he's going to be a stud at the next level.
My one concern, and why I have him at number 4, can he win on the outside? Can he blow by guys at the next level? There's a chance, but how much of it is going to be him relying on his route running, and will he be the next Hunter Renfrow, or will he be the next Antonio Brown? Because those are kind of 2 sides of the same coin, right? Of these elite footwork route runner guys. Which, listen, a Hunter Renfrow, I'll gladly take a Hunter Renfrow. Like that's a very a good asset to have on your team, but it's maybe not what it wouldn't. That wouldn't be wide receiver 1. That'd be wide receiver 4 in the class.
Just not with Josh McDaniels' offense.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Uh, he's got good speed though. Like the
Yeah.
big thing is like, can he win the hand battles? Because I think teams, will probably try and jam him. But
Mhm.
can he win the hand battles? Can he get off the line of scrimmage? That's going to be the big thing. I'm willing to bet on it. I haven't seen a team. I haven't seen a player or anyone. And like ACC is not the strongest competition, but he's faced some pretty good competition. I haven't seen anybody really like effectively slow him down. And yes, he's going to face better players at the NFL level, but I also think he's a better player than a lot of the guys he goes up against. So we'll see if he can continue to do it. I think he's going to be able to win inside, outside. I'm just betting on him working at the next level.
Where did you have him on your list again? You said it, but I missed it.
I have him at third.
Okay. Yeah. That seems reasonable. Let's go to who
I
I
almost put
have.
him one. I almost put him as the number one receiver,
Okay.
but
Interesting.
the other guy's just too physically impressive. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Let's keep it moving.
Well, let's go to who most people have, who I have at number 3, who most people have at 1. He's the consensus number 1. Jackson Smith-Njigba, I have as my number 3 pass catcher. Listen, again, kind of the same mold, right? He's a little bit bigger now, 6 feet tall, 196. Feels like a giant in this draft class, being 6 feet tall. He's someone who at Ohio State, he played in the slot. That was his role at Ohio State. So explosive. He's so shifty. I totally get why people are so high on him. If he goes, pick 11 to Tennessee, which I've seen get mocked a bit, I get it. There's definitely some great stuff with him. He had against Utah, he had 347 yards and 3 touchdowns in one game. I mean, that's absurd. Only played 60 snaps last year due to a hamstring issue. He's not a contested catch guy. That's not what he does. He doesn't go up and get the football. And I do, again, with all these guys, can he win on the outside consistently? A lot of how he won, I felt like in college on the outside, was with speed. I don't think his speed is going to work as well at the next level. He ran a 4.45 at his pro day. So I'm not even sure if he runs a 4.5, which is, that's on the slow side for a guy who, oftentimes in college won with his speed, and he's not a blocker at all. But those are my concerns, and that's why I have him at 3, while other people would have him at 1 on their list. But again, the upside is the upside. I agree with all of the positives about him. I could see him working out.
I'm surprised he's consensus 1. I do have him 4th, but like I said, he's still in my top 20. It feels like you could almost just copy paste this Ohio State shit again, right? It's just big guy, good route runner, always open, makes catches, rarely ever drops the ball. Ohio State receiver. The big thing is that like they were saying he was better than the other guys last season, and those guys turned to be pretty good.
Right
now, I think he is easily the best route runner in this class. I think he has fantastic hands. I don't like you said he's not a contested catch guy. I'm not willing to say he's not a contested catch guy. He just, with Ohio State, you never have to make a contested catch in your life. So,
sure.
I think he had pretty good contested catch numbers, but it was just on very low. It's such a low sample size. It's like, how do you even judge that? But yeah, I mean, I think that's something he could definitely figure out. And I just, he's got an amazing hands, an amazing set of hands. He gets open. He's going to be awesome at the next level as long as he stays healthy and engaged.
Yeah. Totally. I can see it. I think that's fair about the contested catch stuff. It's possible that a couple of him not being able to come down is sticking in my head more than they should. I don't know. But there's plenty of stuff to like about him. But again, I guess my question is, he's someone who, like Garrett Wilson, showed this kind of receiver can work in the NFL. Because to me, they're very similar prospects. But we don't know that he's going to be Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson just won Offensive Rookie of the Year, so I can see why it would, why you'd want to go with that. But I also say, like, Garrett Wilson, really good receiver. I don't know if he's shown he's like an elite receiver in this league yet. I think that he's shown that he's a very good receiver in this league, but he's not someone that you completely shift your offense, your defense around when you're, I guess you do when it's the Jets because they don't have anyone else. But like, typically on a regular thing, he's not someone who like, we have to double every single play. And I don't know if Jackson Smith-Njigba will be that as well. Like the name Jackson though, spelled with an X too. That's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Is from Rockwall, Texas. So that's good stuff there. And
okay.
His brother's in the MLB. So that's interesting. I don't know. Like, I think Garrett Wilson's a really good receiver too. Like, I don't know if he's going to be great, but I do think he's really good. And then, like, I feel like we talked about this with Wilson and Olave last year, and we're talking about it with Smith-Njigba again, because we talk about these guys getting off the line of scrimmage so many times. But I think one of the things we just kind of, how many times do teams actually like run press man anymore? Like, it's something that happens a lot less in this league. And it's like, okay, if you're not going to make these guys work off the line of scrimmage and they're just able to use their route running ability, it's becoming a lot easier for them. And it's because we're so emphasized on deep coverage now. That's the main priority. Like, it just feels like that could be a situation where he's going to feast because they're not going to try and jam him up and make him work for it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's always a bit of an overblown thing. Like, you're going to get plenty of snaps where there's not press. Most snaps aren't going to be against press coverage.
Yeah. I mean, you would really have to be in a bad off. You'd have to get drafted by the Texans probably to see a lot of that because nobody gets open in that offense.
Right. We see Kyle with that stash would dominate MLB at the catcher position. His rookie card would go for millions.
Yeah. I mean, I played catcher in Little League. I was decent.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. I never played. I was. Go ahead. What's that?
Oh, it's just there's nothing really else to talk about that. But yeah, I mean, I love catcher.
No. Yeah, sure. Who doesn't love catcher? What are we talking about? Let's move on. Number 2 on this list, Dalton Kincaid, who, number 1 tight end on my board, number 2 overall pass catcher on my board. I mean, the thing about here, sorry, I screwed up my notes here for a second. But yeah, the thing about him, I mean, he's like a receiver out there. Like, the way he moves is legitimately like a receiver. Now, 23, so a bit of an older prospect, only 6'3" as well, so not a incredibly tall prospect. And again, sometimes we'll make some of these odd decisions on who to block, but he can block. He just sometimes makes some weird decisions on it. I mean, the way he moves is what you like about Kincaid. He feels like a wide receiver that plays tight end, and I think that could work at the NFL level. Now, will he be an elite wide receiver at the NFL level at the tight end position, or will he be like a Cameron Brate type, where it's like he does it solid but not consistent enough to like be a star? Who knows? But I like him a lot.
Yeah, I'm a fan of his too. Really good route runner, really good set of hands for a tight end. I mean, he's going to be taken pretty early, and I don't know, like, do you get some Kelsey vibes from him on his ability to just kind of get open in those soft spots of zones? I mean, there's a little bit of that to his game. I don't want to go as far to say he's going to be the next Travis Kelce because that's not really fair to anybody. But he has a lot of he's a little bit smaller, but there's a lot of the similar traits to his game. And he might even be a more polished blocker than Kelce was at a college.
Yeah, completely agree. And again, who knows if these guys and tight ends is a bit of a tough position to evaluate. But yeah, he'll be the next Travis Kelce, 100%.
You heard it from him. Go ahead and clip that out, put it on your TikTok, put it on your Twitter. Jackson Kruger says Dalton Kincaid is the next Travis Kelce. Just run with that.
Sure. Yeah. Share any part of the show. That'd be fine.
Yeah, I guess that would work too. Just that part mainly would be funniest.
Yeah, that would be funny. It blows up and everyone's like, "What? That's what a crazy take by him."
Yeah, unless he's good, then you look amazing.
That'd be good. That'd be great if I had a take that wasn't even my take end up blowing up and then being aging really well.
You'd probably prefer that over the Kellen Mond take, right?
Probably, yeah. Maybe over the Kadarius Toney take as well.
Hey man, he scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
That's true. Ja'Marr Chase never did that.
Stock is up, man. He's coming back.
Yeah, definitely. Final. Or did we finish Dalton Kincaid?
Yeah, I mean, he's awesome. I really love his ability. And like I said, I think he's going to be a zone buster big time. And it just comes down to, like you said, can he physically be dominant at the next level too, to the point where he's one of those top tight ends, or does he fall into that second category, like you mentioned? It's really hard to evaluate these guys. And I mean, I think he's going to probably go in the top 10, but like, should he go in the top 10 is the question, just because how hard it is to project these guys.
Yeah. Number 1 on my list, someone who a lot of people are really low on this guy. I don't really get why. Quentin Johnston out of TCU, my favorite wide receiver by a pretty good margin. I think it's actually there's a pretty big gap between him and the next wide receiver, which would be Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think he's a great athlete. He's got 6'3", 208 pounds. So one of the few big receivers in this draft class. To me, I get shades of Chris Olave of how he runs routes, where it's very much get to your who Chris Olave. I wasn't too high on coming out of the draft and probably should have been, because he just understands zone well and he understands how to get open in those situations very well. I think he's really explosive, and he finds ways to win. I see him going over the middle. I see like AJ Brown going over the middle of that stuff. Which I think people now view AJ Brown as the outside guy, which I think Quentin Johnston can still do. I think he does have the explosiveness and the route running skills to get open on the outside. I think he could help himself out route running a little bit more sometimes. He sometimes does just run to his spot, but it works for him in college, and I'm sure in the NFL he can. People do build on that stuff. The one knock on him, which is fair, he's not the best at contested catches. For a guy who's 6'3", you'd think he'd be better at that. But I don't know. I really like Quentin Johnston. I think he could really work.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I'm with you on the contested catch thing. I do think he can get better at it. I think that's something you could probably coach up in him too. So I do think he can get better at that. And I mean, I just look at the whole package. He's, they're 6'4", almost 200 pounds and fast, and can run almost any route in the book. I mean, he didn't run a ton of routes at TCU. That's just kind of the nature of the offense. He ran a lot of verts. He ran a lot of kind of, short drag routes was a big thing in their offense too. Those are basically his whole route tree. But I think he has the other stuff in his toolbox. He just never really had to use it. So I don't know. It's really hard to look at him and say that's not the best receiver in the draft. He's so physically dominant. He's so fast. He's so strong. And he's so good after the catch too. Like, I just think that's a valuable trait to have when you can catch the ball and run into space and make people miss and shed tacklers. I just think that's something that's going to go a long way at the next level.
Yeah, completely agree. To me, I mean, I have him as like a top 10 prospect in this draft class. I don't think it'd be crazy to draft him that high.
I would have him in that range too. Yeah, I mean, he looks like the complete package, and if he continues to add to his game, I mean, he could be. He's one of the couple of players on the offensive side of the ball, as far as offensive prospects, that I think could be stars in this league.
Yeah, and actually, I undersold him. I'm my 5th favorite prospect in the draft. That's how much I'm a fan of his.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, he is really talented, so I don't see why not. I mean, I don't see why not at all. He's really talented.
Yeah. Why? So why is he so low? Why are people so low on him? I mean, I've seen mock drafts where he's not even drafted in the first round.
My guess would be that people don't love big guys that can't go up and win 50-50 balls all the time. That's something that, like, when you look at an AJ Brown, he's so good at that. Or a DeAndre Hopkins, he's so good at that. But I think one of the things that's underrated about Johnston's game is, like, yeah, he's big and strong, but he gets separation.
Right.
And he has closing speed to, outdistance, defensive backs. It's not like he's trying to win all these 50-50 balls and not doing it. That's just a small part of his game. He can get open in a variety of different ways. And I think that's something that's being overlooked.
Yeah, I agree. That's our pass catchers. 10 pass catchers in the books. We are now going to move on to running backs. Running backs, which I am on quite the heater here, predicting running backs so far. I had Dameon Pierce as my running back 1. I was also remember being very high on Ramondre Stevenson. He hit well, so it's going to come crashing down now that we've called it out and noticed it. But it was a great run.
Yeah, you're hot on this one. I'm curious to hear your takes. There is a very clear top 2 that is formed, I think, in draft talks, and I'm curious if you agree with everybody. And I think there's some pretty good sleepers. This is actually looks like a pretty decent running back class. It's just, you're not drafting a lot of these guys in the first round because they are running backs. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I would not draft any, my take on all of that stuff in the first round. But I agree. Very deep class. I do have a hot take towards the top of this list. So be on the lookout. Do I think number 1 is what everyone else thinks number 1 is? We'll see. Starting off from number 5, Tajee Spears out of Tulane. Just a really shifty back. 5'10", 201 pounds. He's a passable blocker. Not great, but it'll work. But he just has the home run hitting ability. He's the guy who I could see coming in and really, he's very explosive. He's someone who I definitely like, and I think that in the right situation could be a really good back.
Yeah, and I watched it in person. He just tore up my crappy USC defense in person
Gotcha.
at that Cotton Bowl. He just destroyed us.
Hmm.
That was a brutal game, but yeah, I mean, he is, like you said, he's shifty, he's explosive, he can separate. I mean, he has the whole package to his game, so he's a really talented player. I had him just off my list, but I have no reason to say he can't be a really good running back.
Yeah. So much stuff to like about him. Again, someone who's a bit lower in the draft class, and I think kind of a 1 year wonder. But again, for halfbacks, I really don't care about that stuff so much. Like if you're good right away. If you're good recently and you don't have a ton of sample size, that's in some ways a benefit because you don't have a ton of wear and tear on your body.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing where reps might be a bad thing. You're not
Hmm.
looking forward to those, but I mean, he doesn't have a lot of reps, but like you said, it is so impressive when he was on the field.
Yeah. Well, all right. Let's move on and let's get to a hot take here. The consensus number 2 on the board. I have at number 5, Jahmyr Gibbs, who I like. I'm not again. I don't hate him necessarily. I don't see him as the number 2, although there's stuff to like, right? He's okay. So he's a 5'9", 199, ran a 4.36, and the speed is real. I mean, you see that speed. He shoots through gaps very well. He reminds me of Kenneth Walker last year. Of like, he as a runner, I don't think there's a huge gap between him and Robinson. As a pure runner, I can see it working. My issues are, he fumbled too much, but really, I don't like his blocking. I think he's bad at blitz pickup, and like we see running backs turn into bust pretty frequently because they can't figure that stuff out. Maybe he'll figure it out, and if he does, he could easily be the best running back in this class. I think it's in the cards for him, but that's a bit of a concern. So, in a good running back class, I'm a little bit lower on him.
Yeah, I have him third, so I guess, I'm kind of, I guess, hot takey with you, but I kind of
Mhm.
have the same thing because one of the things I think he's excellent at, I think, you know, he is probably the second best pass catching back in this class. Like he's a
Mhm.
really good receiver.
Yeah.
That's just because we're get to Robinson in a second. But he is a really good receiver. But if you can't block, you're not going to be on there for pass down situations a whole lot. Or
Right.
it's obvious tell. That's the whole thing where certain guys make their entire career off of being pass catching backs because they can also block, and it makes it really tough on NFL defenses. But if you can't block and people are just going to say, "Oh, it's a passing play," that makes them hard for them to be out there on third down. So I think that's a huge problem he's going to have to overcome. But he is really talented. He's just got to figure out that part of his game.
Yeah. Do you agree with me that like there isn't a huge gap between him and Robinson just as a pure runner?
No,
Okay.
I still think there's a gap, but
Mhm.
yeah, I
I mean, I
mean,
think there's a gap. I'm just saying
he,
not a huge gap.
yeah, he is the closest, that's for sure. But yeah, I do think that there still is a pretty sizable gap.
Yeah, fair enough. Plenty to still like about Gibbs. Just kind of feel like who he's gonna be. Number 3 on my list. I am going with Devon Achane, out of Texas A&M. Is that, how do you say his last name?
I believe it's A Chain.
Achane. That's a fun name.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, that's a great running back name too. Like Achane moves the chains. Like that can work.
Yeah, that's a marketable prospect for sure.
Yeah, I think he could be a marketable prospect. Only 5'8", which is definitely going to be something people point towards. But again, running backs can work if they're a little smaller. Runs a 4.32, and it shows up on tape. He moves really fast. He can block, even though he's a little bit smaller. Really, smart runner as well. I have a little bit of concerns about his height and weight being a little bit on the small side here. So, like him as a runner, I think he moves very fast. Like he can block all that stuff. But that's why I have him at 3.
Yeah, there's so much to like about his game. Like you said, he is a little bit smaller, but at the same time, like the dude never gets tackled, it feels like sometimes. He is so good at breaking
Hmm.
tackles, staying on his feet. I mean, there's a little bit of there's some shades of Kamara to his game, right? Like
Hmm.
just the ability to always stay on his feet, always extend plays, always get to the sticks. I mean, he has some of that to his game, even if he is a little bit smaller. We'll see if he can keep that up, but that is something that is really good and really polished about him.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I like him. I have him ahead of the guy who most people have it too. Where do you have him?
I have him fourth, so I have him just below Gibbs. But I see a lot of the similar stuff too. I really like these running backs. Is the problem? The problem is
Hmm.
that they're running backs, so they're not going to get taken to the third round. So
Yeah. But that's kind of the fun of them too. It's like day 4, like Achane has been selected, and now or day 4, round 4, and then it's like, oh well, wow, the Patriots got a great player.
Yeah, I could see us hitting a point in like the late second, early third round where like 4 or 5 running backs go off in a row because somebody decides to pull the trigger on the running back, and then everyone feels like they have to get the back they like.
Yeah, everyone panics. Yeah, I could see that. Number 2. Carl, are you interested to see who I have at number 2? Am I going with the hot take? Am I not putting Bijan Robinson? No, Bijan Robinson is number 1 still. I'll say that right now. But Dewayne McBride, I have out of UAB. I really like this guy. I fell in love with his tape. He's shifty. He's strong. He just falls forward. He's one of those guys where it's like he always gets tackled moving forward. He never gets tackled going backward. And he picks his gaps very well. Very smart player. Makes his reads very quickly. Not a great receiver. Doesn't have the long speed, and there's a low level of competition playing at UAB. That's the concern I have. But I really like his tape, and I think he's going to work in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, there's real potential for it. Like you said, he is big. I have him off my list because, like you said, there's not really much of a pass catcher there, and the fumbles were brutal. I think he had 9 fumbles or something like that. Let me look at the number at that for them. 9 fumbles in his 3 years. So, I mean, that's a little bit of a concern. And like I said, there's not much to add to the passing game, which I think is really important too. But he can run. And he's going to be great in goal line situations, and he's going to be good in short yardage situations. So there is something to really like about a player like that.
Yeah, and I will have to say, the few times he did play against like an actual college team, I thought he looked well. Like I thought he played well. I didn't think that he was like he he got worse once he played against the higher competition. So to me, it wasn't just beating up on lower competition. The numbers are absurd. I mean, he had 7.2 yards per carry over his career in college. Like that's just silly.
Yeah, I mean, there really is a lot like that, and a ton of broken tackles. I guess the thing that would be a worry is like, he has 485 carries already under his belt. Is this a guy? I mean, if you're taking him late in the draft, I think that's fine. But is this a guy who could break down pretty early?
I don't know. That doesn't seem like an insane amount of carries for me.
I think it's a little higher than some of these guys for sure.
Sure. It's closer to the high side. Although, again, part of that was they just gave him the ball every play.
Yeah. I mean, he was their offense. He was really their offense. So
it's funny. His snaps are actually lower. His snap count is actually lower than most of these guys, but like the carries are higher because he was always getting the ball.
Yeah. So it'll definitely be interesting. I have him just off my list, but I could see him being very good in the league for a long time.
Yeah, very interesting with him. We'll see if my hot streak continues, if he can be successful at the next level of these running backs. Probably not. I feel like I'm due for a miss.
You never know. Maybe I'll take him in fantasy now just because you mentioned it.
Sure, yeah. Everyone on this podcast, go ahead, take him in fantasy. This guy's going to get taken high in fantasy. Bijan Robinson. Gotta say, I have him number 1. I think he's the best back. Don't think he's a generational talent. I don't think he's that kind of guy. I'm not that high on him. Listen, breaks tackles very well. He can block. He cuts incredibly well. He moves for his size, moves great at 5'11", 215. He makes my concerns of him. He's another guy who fumbles, and he's someone who he makes some odd decisions. He makes some. I don't love his vision. And that's kind of why I'm a bit lower on him. I feel like sometimes he doesn't pick the right gaps that he should run through. And so because of that, I'm not quite as high on him, but I still think he's the best back. And he feels like a true 3-down back. So, given the way the NFL evaluates running backs, he's a first-round back from that perspective. Obviously, I wouldn't draft him in the first round, but I can see why people like him so much.
Yeah, he's becoming the interesting debate on if he's going to go in the first round. I think talent-wise, like if you rated the top 31 players in this draft, I would have him in the top 31. In fact, I might even have him in the top 15. I think I'm a lot higher on him than you are. I think he to me, he could step into the league and be a top 12 back next season. Like,
I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got the skill, he's got the strength, he's got the speed. I mean, he ran vert routes in that Texas offense for receptions. Like, it wasn't even just a draw defense. He would make catches downfield as a running back. And I mean, he's the complete package to me. I think he's got everything in his game. And yeah, I mean, I think he relied a little bit too much sometimes on his physical gifts, but at the same time, he has the physical gifts to take advantage of. So I think there's so much to like about his game. I think he's going to be awesome at the next level. I think he's going to be a superstar in this league. He's the one offensive player I would bet on being a star at the next level.
Yeah. I mean, listen, this is how much hype there is for him. I have him at number 1, and I'm a Bijan Robinson hater. Like, that's how,
Yeah.
hyped up this guy is. I think he's someone who can do it all. I agree. I think he's going to be in the NFL. I think that he's going to be a player for a while. I do wonder how much success he'll have, but he just feels like a day one. Like, he's a starting running back. You don't have to worry about it. Now, I've heard some talks of, like, the Eagles should draft him at 10. I've seen that in mock drafts. That would just be an insane decision.
No, they have too much to replace on their defense.
Mm-hmm.
They need guys. I
Even
still
if they
think
didn't.
yeah, they still have decent players that they need to replace. So yeah, I mean, I would. I guess let me pull up the draft order here. What is like? Let me pull up the draft order. So like, is like 28 to Cincinnati? Like, is that a bad pick?
Yeah, it's about. I mean, it's just there's not the value there. It's just the position. It's exciting. It's fun. But I think for Cincinnati, like, there's going to be someone who's going to add more value at pick 28.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible. If it's Philadelphia at 30, you're still saying no?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I think so. Like, to me, but again, part of it is I don't think he's. We have someone in the chat saying the next Saquon. I just don't see that. I just don't see him as the next Saquon. I think that if he is the next Saquon, just in terms of Saquon as a prospect, is what we're talking about. Maybe he'll have a Saquon career, which is still very good. Then maybe but I just don't see him as that guy. And I think that for someone who is like a day one running back, like, how much, like, just look at like the league. Like, how much do these types of running backs who are like good but not elite get paid? Like under 10 million a year. Whereas you can find like an average starting tackle gets paid that much.
Yeah. I mean, it'll definitely be interesting to see how he plays out and how this draft plays out, because I think we've had some running back misses in the first round the last couple of years, especially that have really kind of been tough on teams and looked like bad picks. Like, I think we're soon going to hit a turning point in this league when it comes to this, that eventually teams are just going to stop doing it. But there are teams that are pretty loaded rosters when you look at Buffalo, Cincinnati, Philadelphia, picking 27, 28, and 30, that kind of have a chance to capitalize if they want this to be their guy. If they view him as that generational prospect, which I think a lot of people do, if they view him as that generational guy, he's going to be there, and it's going to be interesting to see if he's taken at that spot, or if they value, or if they take go back to positional value.
Here's kind of my argument is for the how much did Christian McCaffrey get? He did not get a first round pick, and now, not a fair comparison because there's some wear and tear on his body and he's getting paid, so that's not the exact same thing. But like, if you could get, if you want a running back, if you're ready to compete now, trade for Christian McCaffrey. Don't draft Bijan Robinson in round 1.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. It's going to be an interesting debate. I mean, like I said, I think talent-wise, he is a first-round talent. It's just the positional value. We're going to go over this again and again and again. It's just going to be something that's talked about for the, until people finally stop taking running backs in the first round, basically.
Yeah, and again, late first round to the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, fine. I guess I get it, but let's be honest. That's not what's going to happen. He's going to be drafted earlier than that.
You think so? Yeah, I mean, I could see it.
I mean, Najee Harris and Travis Etienne weren't the prospect that Robinson is, and they both went in the first round.
Yeah. I mean, just looking at a few teams, like, if Tampa took him at 19, how pissed would you be?
That would just be that. Of course, that's what Todd Bowles is going to do. He might trade up to get him.
I mean, he'd sell jerseys.
He would.
That's watch.
Absolutely true. What about what's the worst case scenario as a fan base? Like, the Bears at 9 would be tough. I could see that happening.
That'd be a very tough one.
Raiders at 7.
Yeah.
What the Patriots at 14? Are you nervous about that? That feels like a Belichick pick.
I don't know. He's never been a draft running backs guy.
He was Sony Michel.
That's
won him a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Oh boy. That was the one time he's really like kind of prioritized drafting a running back, and I mean, outside of that Super Bowl run, I think it was largely viewed as a mistake.
But in fairness, if he did do it, he drafted him at 28 because he traded down like 4 times already.
Yeah, that's true. So I don't know. I think I wouldn't be shocked if he goes in the top 15. So
Mhm.
it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah. Let's move on. Actually, I forgot to ask you this last time. Do you have what are the running backs and wide receivers that didn't make
Oh,
my list that made your list?
I have. Let me go back up to my receivers. I have a tight end in my top 10 that you didn't name. Luke Musgrave. I had him eighth. Didn't play a whole lot in college. Got hurt last year, but physically really talented. Physically really talented tight end at Oregon State. So I think he can go second round for sure. Um, I have two running backs in my top five. You didn't name. I'm really shocked he didn't put this guy. This feels like a Jackson Kruger kind of running back. I had Zach Charbonnet second. Um, One cut, get up the field. He's big, he's strong, he's fast. Um, he just kind of feels like a guy you'd really like. I think he's going to be really good. I think he's a potential 3-down back, and he has the production to back it up. So I really like him as my number two back. And then the other one, another big guy, Tank Bigsby, with a great name, Tank Bigsby.
Hmm.
I have him fifth on my list. And he's just another guy where he's just huge. He bounces off guys. He hits human beings hard, and he had like 5.5 yards per carry at Auburn, and like four yards were after contact or something like that. I mean, it was a terrible offense. They were all preparing to stop him, and he still got 5.5 yards per carry. So he had a really good year, just being a big physical specimen. And then because I watched him for so long, he's on my honorable mentions list. He's not going to be taken very early in the draft, but I am rooting for this guy more than anybody. Everybody should be a Deuce Vaughn fan. 5'5", just this
Hmm.
incredible player to watch play. It's one of the most unique things. I'm rooting for Deuce Vaughn at the NFL level. I want him to be a starter. I'm speaking it into existence.
All right. Well, yeah. Yeah. Charbonnet, someone who I considered actually him and Bigsby would both probably be made a top seven. I think they'd both make the top seven list. So Charbonnet, very consistent. I looked at his PFF grades game in and game out. Every game was in the 70s. He didn't have a single one above or below. That's where he was. To me, he feels like he's solid at everything, but not like elite at anything. So it feels like he'll be a solid back, but I just don't know how much value there is in that. And I agree with Bigsby, another guy who very interesting. So yeah, he could work as well.
Yeah. This is a good running back class. It really is. Like, we're not just saying that. And I know the
Hmm.
positional value is there, but like this, we said everyone should take a receiver for sure in like the second or third round. I feel like every team should come away with a running back in this draft. There's just so many guys. I'm seeing like Deuce Vaughn is a guy who's like consensus like 10th running back. Sean Tucker's another guy who's just this explosive, really talented running back with a ton of production. Those are guys who I think could make NFL rosters that might not be taken until the fifth, sixth, seventh round.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly why I think you shouldn't take a running back in the first round.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
I get it. It's just Bijan's really talented. So I wouldn't necessarily blame a team, but I'm definitely straying away from ever doing that as far as running backs go.
Yeah. Let's move to offensive linemen. Again, not crazy about this O-line draft class. I feel like I've said that for pretty much every position, and I'm not trying to. I don't want to be negative. I'd rather be positive if I could. But it just that's kind of how I view this. I have I have 4 first-round offensive linemen. The highest who is not a first rounder for me is Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. Someone who, to me, he feels like he could be a good maybe could work as a guard because he does have power. Played well versus Will Anderson. That's good. I do kind of feel like that's where a lot of his hype is coming from. Again, PFF grades do translate well to the NFL with this stuff. If you're good at PFF, if you have a high PFF grade at the offensive line position, tend to be good at the NFL level. 65 run defense or not run defense, run blocking grade. That's not very good. Don't love his footwork at all either. So, I have some concerns about him. There is the upside, 333, 6'5", maybe could work as a guard, but I don't know if I see him as a tackle in this league.
Yeah, and don't call him a right tackle. He'll be in your Twitter DMs too.
Okay.
I had him just off my list, but I do think he is physically talented. Does need to improve in his run blocking, but as far as a pass blocker, like you said, he's gone up against some of the best guys and really held his own. So I wouldn't be shocked if he goes into the first round. But I have him just off my top 5.
Yeah. Let's move on. Number 4. Broderick Jones out of Georgia, who is someone who kind of a similar guy to Wright, excuse me. Has really good power. At 21 years old, 6'5", 311. Do wonder if he's a guard as well. I think he's just very raw. Like his numbers aren't great, but he at least has an excuse of like he's young and hasn't played a ton. Only 203 true pass sets in college. That's like he's a complete developmental guy. But I could see some real upside with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those few offensive linemen when you watch the highlights, it's impressive because the way he moves in space. I mean, sometimes when you look at him, like especially when they wore those black jerseys, black slimming and all that, like it looks like he's like a tight end there lining up as like an offset offensive tackle or something.
Right.
And then with the way he moves in space is just there's no other tackle like that in this draft class. I mean, I guess, we'll see how that holds up physically, but I mean, it's really impressive when he's out in space running and, as a lead blocker. It's a really impressive skill set to have.
Yeah. My concerns though is like, just feels like a developmental guy. I haven't seen him be good consistently just yet. Any more thoughts on him?
No, I'm with you on that. I honestly think he might have been like the third best tackle on their team. There's a couple guys coming up for them. They're going to be really good. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how he develops. Like you said, there wasn't a ton of snaps for him either. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think maybe no crazy hot takes for me at the top of this list. Although maybe this would be the one. A lot of guys probably have him at 2. I have him at 3. Paris Johnson Jr., who I still really like. He is my second favorite tackle on this list. Kind of feels like a can't miss guy. Feels like he checks every single box. I don't have any like major concerns about him. I mean, I guess he has some room to improvement like with his hands. More of a run blocker than a pass blocker, but I don't know. A guy who I feel like he's going to hit at the next level. I just don't know if he's going to be a star at the next level.
I have him first just because I think he has the most star potential for left tackle. Like I think the other guys are going to be good, and like you said, they're probably safer picks. But at the same time, like he's a guy that I think could, if all of his physical gifts come together, I think he could be the most dominant player in this draft class. He is athletically, I mean. Outside of Jones, he might be the best athlete as far as offensive lineman goes. I think he moves really well. I'm impressed with what he can do. Yeah,
did not have the best production in college though. It was good. It was good, but wasn't as good as Skoronski, who I have higher.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. Is I think Skoronski is a guy who I think is going to be able to come in and basically be a good left tackle for a very long time. I think Johnson has a chance to be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, interestingly enough, we'll see. I'm sure that's what every podcast we're going to be talking about: the Paris Johnson Jr. versus Peter Skoronski. The debates.
Yeah. It's really going to get all those clicks, right? I mean, that's the number one thing.
Yeah. I can't even remember. I can't remember who we had as in the 3 tackles last year. I remember I was lower on Evan Neal, but the other 2, I have no memory of how we felt about either of them.
I'm trying to remember.
I know I liked both of them. I think I had a Kwon 1 and Cross 2 now that I think about it. Hey, I nailed it. Perfect by me.
Yeah, I think I had Icky 1 too, if I remember.
Well, we can just say it. No one's going to fact check that. Yeah.
I think we both too. But
we actually both had Abraham Lucas ahead of Evan Neal. We were great.
Yeah, we nailed that. Good job by us.
I actually did have Abraham Lucas. I was redoing just looking at my top 64 prospects, and I had him as like a top 50 prospect. I was like, oh, I forgot I did that.
Another win for Jackson, man. You're killing it.
Hey, I had a great listen. Out of all the L's I've taken over the years, finally having a good draft evaluation, I feel good about last year.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Got to brag when I get the chance because this is probably going to go terribly. Osiris Torrance at number 2 is probably going to turn into a bust or something, and we're back at bad evaluations. But no, I like Osiris Torrance out of Florida. To me, so he's a guard, and that's getting held against him because the NFL does not value guards as high as tackles. But I think there's no difference. I think good offensive lineman is a good offensive lineman. I've seen no evidence to support that it's the other way. The other way is true. Listen, this is a guy who held his own against Jalen Carter, the guy who you and I say is the best non-quarterback in this draft class. He's great at double teams, and he's a high IQ player. Like I was blown away by some of these blitz pickups that he was like reading. These plays he's reading. really good, not overly fast. He's 6'5",
Yeah.
330. He's not the fastest guard, and that maybe could hold him off from being a star. But to me, this guy feels like, I don't know, he could be a good guard for 15 years.
Yeah, he is huge and he's dominant. And like you said, I mean, he's really left Florida in a bad spot as far as offensive line play this next season. But he is a really talented player, and I think he's going to be really good. I have him fourth on my list. I think I'm probably knocking him just a little bit for positional value because I do think he's going to get dropped a little bit for that to probably fringe first round. But at the same time, he's the best guard in this draft by far. And he is just physically impressive. And like you said, he's really smart and he's gone against the best players and also dominated too. So I'm a big fan of his as well.
Yeah. Number one, we already know what's coming. Peter Skoronski. I'm saying it right. Skoronski?
I don't watch a lot of Northwestern, so sure.
Well, if you did, I'm not sure if you'd still hear his name called that much as the tackle. Oh, what a block by Skoronski.
Probably. There's not a lot to watch with Northwestern football.
That might be fair. That might be fair. Really good production though. Numbers are great. Advanced analytics, really good stuff. Only 21 years old. Room for him to improve. 6'4", 313. Maybe not quite as tall as your guy Paris Johnson Jr., but still very good. You touched on it. His speed and his power isn't quite as dominant. It's good. It'll work in the NFL, but it's not maybe star making stuff. But to me, why I think he could be a star is because of his hands. I think his technique is really good. Maybe he's a guard, but again, I don't have an issue with that. If he plays guard, fine. Wherever you can be at your best, again, I've seen no evidence to support that tackles are more valuable than guards, even though that's what people tend to think. But to me, he is the best tackle in this class.
Yeah, he's positionally versatile. He basically wins his battle every time. I think he has a high football IQ, and I mean, I don't know. It just comes down to what is his ceiling, and do you view his ceiling as that high? If not, I still view him as a really good player, though. So I think that's a huge thing to go off of. I think he's going to be good at the next level, and he feels like one of those guys you could draft and plug and play. Feels like he'd be ready to go next season.
Yeah, he's my second highest non-quarterback offensive player. I have him at number 7 overall on my list, ahead of Anthony Richardson on my big board.
Yeah, Chicago really needs him to fall to 9. That's all I got to say. Like, it'd be perfect. Literally, he's from right across town. That just plug him in and play him right there.
I haven't seen a single mock draft that doesn't have him going there. Like every single one consistently has him going there.
It's a perfect situation. I don't know what it is about Northwestern. They stink at football, but they turn out offensive line prospects every few years. And I don't know. It just feels like it's a match made in heaven right there. I think they really need a player that's ready to play right now at the offensive line spot.
Yeah. All right. So who didn't make my list that made yours?
Anton Harrison. I have him 5th. It's just, another guy who I think is a physically really talented athlete, and I think he could be a really good offensive lineman. An honorable mention, another guy I'm rooting for, Cody Mock. Great hair. Hope he's able to play at the next level.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. Harrison, most people have him as a first rounder. He's one of those, like, every now and then you watch a prospect and you're like, I don't get it. And he's one of those, I don't get it. The production isn't good. People like his hands, but everything I saw, like, I thought his hands were getting swatted away, like, easily. Fine enough strength. He could be kind of one of those, like, swing tackles that, like, plays a little, but isn't, like, a star, but just is better than, he isn't a disaster. I could see that, but I kind of have him as, like, a third rounder. Like, to me, he's just not someone I'm overly high on.
Interesting. I mean, it'll be interesting to see where he's taken. I do think he has some development to go, but I think physically all the tools are there.
Yeah, a lot of people like him. I mean, he's 31st on the consensus big board, so that's a first rounder, is what the consensus people say. But I didn't see it.
Yep, I think that's perfectly fair. I think that's all I got for offensive line. You got anything else?
No, I'm good. That's all we got for the prospects. Kyle, a week from today, we will do our mock draft. Always the most disliked podcast of the year. And I mean, literally, like, the dislike button gets hit the most on that podcast every year.
Yeah, we embrace it. We have hot takes. We give opinions not everyone's going to like, but that's okay because we're doing our best out here, man. And, this draft stuff's hard. Not everyone's going to agree on everything. It's just always funny that like the ones people disagree with the most are the things that actually happens. I still can't remember you getting roasted for picking J.K. Dobbins to the Ravens, and then the Ravens took J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, that one was great. Yeah, no, and people, and then, and like, I legitimately have some terrible takes. Like, there's plenty of things that could criticize me for, but those ones seemingly go under the radar.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man.
When I picked Kellen Mond going to the Saints in the first round, people were like, "Oh, good pick."
Yeah.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it really kind of. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but I mean, there are certainly some hot button debates there, and people are gonna come calling. They're gonna come upset, and we embrace it.
Yeah, we have your mock drafts are great. Remember Kellen Mond? No, name doesn't seem to ring a bell. I'm not sure who you're referring to there.
How much are you reminded of Kellen Mond all the time?
It's always I feel like you can probably find on every video a Kellen Mond take somewhere, thing somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you got to come out spicy. It doesn't always work. It's okay.
it happens. It happens. I don't regret it. Kyle, we can touch on the NBA and the hockey for a second if you want. First, let's let them know they can find us on Twitter before we do that though.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Gronin, and make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That's at On the Sideline JK.
Yeah. Also, I thought your Zach Wilson take was worse. You said he could be better than Rodgers. I don't know if I quite said that, but it was a bad take. Listen, we don't need to get into a game of what's my worst take in the comments. Thank you, everyone. Or do whatever. It's your comment section. Anywhere if you get like listening to podcasts, anywhere you get your podcast, the audio only feed is available. So, if that's how you like if you're going for a run or something, want a podcast, download one of ours there. Can do that. Kyle. Both of our teams are 1-0 in the first round. Your Bruins play tonight. Bergeron still not in the lineup. Sam Bennett is in there for Florida. Feels kind of like a must-win for Florida.
Yeah, I think they got to throw the kitchen sink at us. They got to come out and hit us. I didn't really think the Bruins played that well in game one.
No.
Like, it seemed like Florida was faster to the puck. They came out with the aggression. I thought the physicality really knocked Pastrnak and Lindholm off their games a little bit. I thought Lindholm was really soft with the puck in game one. So we'll see how the Bruins respond to that. But at the same time, the Bruins created much better scoring chances despite not playing very well. Like they had definitely the higher percentage scoring chances in this game and more of the higher percentage scoring chances and won the game 3-1. And then they got the soft goal along with it. So like, I'm not overly worried. I think, if they could put the neck down or the foot down to the neck tonight, take care of business in game 2, go to Florida. I feel pretty good about that with Bergeron coming back. You want to try and get the Bruins early, I feel like. We're still working Foligno back to the lineup. Hall just came back a few games ago. Forbort just came back too from injury. A lot of guys coming back from injuries, working their way back in the lineup. If you can catch the Bruins early, that's probably the best bet. But I just feel like they're working the way into the game and feeling it out.
Yeah, I think I watched that game one Panthers Bruins. I thought I watched weirdly a decent amount of Panthers games this year just because I was interested in like the playoff race. Panthers are a better team than people realize. Panthers are hot right now, and Matthew Tkachuk, he's a star in this league. Like they're clearly the underdogs, but like I could see them if they can steal a game or two, making this a much more interesting series. I don't think this is again, it's the NHL. This isn't something where I expect the Bruins to sweep, although they certainly could because they are the Bruins.
Yeah. Tkachuk's really good. He did score that nice goal off of just a boneheaded turnover. But, if he didn't suck so much, he'd be a lot more popular.
Well, yeah. But hey, also a great personality.
Yeah. I guess.
An interesting personality.
Interesting personality is definitely a way to put it. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, I mean, it just seemed like the Bruins were just, even if they didn't play that well, it just felt like they were a better team the entire time.
Yeah, well, I mean, it definitely took the wind out of the Panthers' sails. I thought a little bit. That Alex Lyon, just dropping a weak wrister from the point by Marchand.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing a minor league 10. Like that's just not
intentionally.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not something that really is beneficial. He made some really nice saves in that game. Don't get me wrong, but he let in the soft shot. So I don't really know what to think. I could see us kind of jumping on in this one, and they put Bob back in for game 3, and then maybe I'm a little more concerned.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I think the Panthers got to win this one. My team, the Lightning, won last night 7-3, which was an interesting, a weird game to say the least. Michael Bunting got himself thrown out of the game. It was weird because so Lightning get off to this hot start, 3-0, and then all of a sudden the Leafs come back, and I'm thinking, okay, here we go. This is Columbus 2019 all over again. They're going to, we're blowing this 3-0 lead, and then the Leafs just, I've never seen it. They choked twice in the same game. I mean, how does this happen?
Because it's the
Only the
Toronto
Leafs.
Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
I don't know. They don't play well in the playoffs, and it just felt like early in the game, Tampa had a level of physicality Toronto was not ready to match, and that played a huge part. And then Toronto got pissed, and that changed the game. I don't know. I don't see a situation. It's really hard to envision right now, based on what we saw in game 1, Toronto bouncing back, because not only is Tampa really physical and really impressive, they also have stars. They still have stars in this team. Kucherov came up with a nice goal. Stamkos is still there. Sergachev. You go through the list. There are really good players on this Tampa team, along with the way they play.
And Braden Point, who never gets talked about. Guy had 50 goals this year, scored 2 goals in game 1. Still never getting talked about.
Yeah, fair enough. So, I mean, all that, plus he got Vasilevsky at the back, that now you have to beat 4 times in 6 games. Like, that's really hard to ask.
Yeah, but here's the thing that concerns me. I'm still not doing a victory lap or anything because, Hedman injury is a red flag, though. Yeah, not just Hedman, who is a game time decision for game 2. Chernak is already ruled out for game 2. And our biggest weakness heading into this series was our defenseman depth. So if we lose Hedman and Chernak, I don't think that this is. I think the Leafs probably still win the series if that happens. I think that would be just such a tough blow. If we have Nick Perbix, who's a rookie defenseman who's come in and played really well for us, but is he going to be defenseman number 2 for us? Like Sergachev's really good, but I don't know if he's going to have to play half the game at this point. That'd be a really tough blow. So they need to get healthy quickly because again, so Michael Bunting gets thrown out of the game, but now we lose our best defenseman for who knows how long. Maybe we don't even win the series. Maybe we can get past Toronto even without those guys, but we don't stand a chance against Boston without those guys.
Yeah, I mean, especially Hedman. Not against Boston. That's a huge problem. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting because Toronto can't go down 2-0 back to Tampa, right? That's not a recipe for success. So they have to throw the kitchen sink at this next game, especially if you guys have people out injured.
Yeah. I think game 2 is going to be a good game. I think both teams are going to show up to play for that one.
Toronto better. That's their chance. That's their season on the line. So it'll come down to that. I do think it'll be interesting, but I mean, Toronto's still so potent. It's like they can. You got 7 on them. They have the ability to put 6 or 7 on anybody too. That's what makes them dangerous.
Yeah, and of course, the only reason they've ever lost a game is because bad calls against them.
Yeah, that's the they just love to blame everybody else. I don't know. I still feel like the Atlantic teams are the best 3 teams.
Yeah, I don't know if that probably. I think I would agree. I've been saying for a while. I think the Stanley Cup champion is going to come out of it's going to be either the Lightning, Bruins, or Leafs,
unless they beat each other to a pulp. Yeah, I kind of feel that way. I don't know. I watched a good amount of those games, and I think Dallas can be impressive at times, but at the same time, I don't know. I just don't see it with their defense.
I think the next best is probably still in the East. I think the Rangers is probably the next one. The Rangers are
there. I mean, even the Edmonton thing. I'm just keep waiting. There's a chance that those guys could have 4 or 5 points a game each. That's just what they do.
Yeah, but then they just they blew it against the Kings. That was a great game.
That was a bad loss.
Just completely blew it. And then the Avalanche and the Knights I think are both good, but then they both lost their first game, so it's only one game in. Who knows? But it's a lot of interesting stuff. I want to get your thoughts on the Draymond situation, just because that was a very unique thing. Getting if you didn't see it, because I know this isn't an NBA podcast, but we like to talk about everything. Also, someone says respect the Avalanche. Listen, I respect the Avalanche. I'm just saying, not off to a great start. That's all. But absolutely did, and they have injuries too. That's the other issue with them. Healthy, I would easily put them in the mix. Yeah, Draymond. So Sabonis falls down, grabs Draymond's ankle. Draymond, responds by stomping on Sabonis, getting kicked out of that game and suspended for another in a series that are now down 0-2. Draymond, just the ultimate heel in sports right now. He makes it interesting. Can't take that against him.
Yeah, he definitely makes it interesting. I don't know. It was just so boneheaded. Like this isn't the first time someone's leg's been grabbed in an NBA game. And like the Warrior fans are trying to argue that Draymond was running. Like he wasn't even starting to run yet. Both of his feet were on the ground. Like he had just landed. Like it was just such a like Sabonis definitely deserved a tech for the situation, but like Draymond exacerbating it definitely warrants an ejection. And the NBA in its history is not, it's not the same as the NHL where they take previous transgressions into account when suspending a player. But they said it this time when it came to Draymond. And I just felt like that was interesting because this is at least like the 10th infringement on Draymond that could be deemed as controversial, And I don't understand the situation and being upset. I don't know how you could defend Draymond in this situation. I really just can't. Yes, Sabonis grabs his leg. That's not a good play. But at the same time, if our thought process is the intent of him grabbing the leg was purposeful, that's not a great play. It warrants being talked about. But you don't get to just stomp on people because you're upset. Like That's not how you handle situations. Like I think Warriors fans trying to argue for this is just insane. This guy is constantly playing right on the edge of the sand. He wants to play on that, that area between physicality and dirty. And he has been dirty multiple times in his career, especially in big playoff games. We don't have to go back to the 2016 finals. There's other instances where he's towed that line and kind of crossed it. And this is just another instance. He doesn't need to react that way. He can, there's a lot of other things he could have done besides that.
Alex Scott B in the comment, he tripped me, so I nuked his house. No, I completely agree. Well, it's like, I heard some Warriors fans saying that as well. Of like, look, maybe he was just trying to step and kind of just did it like that. It looks like he stomped on him. That's what it looks like, which is an illegal move in UFC. You can't do that in a sport where it's literally okay to kick people in the face. You can't stomp on someone like that. So for me, I think that I think the obvious take is, listen, we're not in his head. Is it possible that he just completely screwed up, was trying to step and that's how it looked like, or just like tried to step on him, but wasn't trying to use as much force as he wanted to, or something like that? Sure, it's possible, but when you have the reputation Draymond does, you don't get that benefit of the doubt anymore. I think the suspension totally makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I just think I think Draymond. I don't think there is any question on Draymond's intent there. We've all seen the replay, and we saw it in slow motion. We saw it at full speed, and it looks like a pretty clear intent to stomp him on the, in the stomach. The question is Sabonis's intent, which, regardless, even if Sabonis's play is bad, that's not how you react to the situation. That's not how it's supposed to play out. He's not I don't know. It felt like that went to a place that got weird where, but Sabonis did this. It's like, okay, that's not how life works. Like, you don't just get to say, well, he did this, so I can react however I want with no remorse. That's not how life works.
Right. It's weird how sometimes people have that take of like, if someone wrongs you, you can do whatever you want to them. Again, like the he tripped me, so I nuked his house thing. It's like, that's just not how it works. What is how it works is the 76ers about to go 16-0 in this playoff run, get James Harden his first ring.
It's not happening.
Come on.
I'm not. I picked Boston to win the finals. I would I don't know. I think they're playing very well. I don't really know how to do with this series because, I mean, look, I know Brooklyn was the 6th seed, but they're under 500 since the Kyrie and Kevin Durant trades. Like, this is not a 6th seed by, talent metric. This is probably the worst playoff team left. So yes, they're beating them. They're doing their job. I really didn't think they looked that good in game 2. They kind of just put it on at the end. I don't know. I still struggle to see how they're going to deal with Boston spacing. And we're seeing what Boston is doing to Trae Young right now. I don't see how they could do any different to Harden and Tyrese Maxey, where they're going to get their guards running at them. And I don't think those guys can guard them. So I just think it comes down to, how does Philadelphia get stops against that Boston offense?
Yeah, that's the correct take. But the fun one is that how are you going to stop Joel Embiid?
Yes, I mean they've played him well in the past, but I mean they're going to be asking a lot of Rob Williams and Al Horford in that series. So if they can do it again for another time, that's a huge thing. But we'll see if they can do it again.
Yeah. Any other storylines from the NBA talk you want to get to?
Let's see. The
Lakers won.
I mean, it really seems like there's a chance the Lakers win the West now, which is annoying.
I'm a fan of it. Well, I like interesting. Lakers are interesting.
Yeah, I guess.
I want to start a play. I as a casual basketball fan, I want to look and be, oh, that's LeBron playing. Like that's fun for me.
That's fair. I definitely watch a lot more basketball. So, but like, I don't know. So it just comes down to like, I think people were rightfully saying Anthony Davis and that Lakers front line was going to dominate Memphis without Adams and without Brandon Clark. I thought people were overlooking the fact that Lakers wouldn't be able to guard John Morant, Desmond Bane, Luke Kennard. And Luke Kennard did not shoot the ball well in game 1. So maybe that adjusts in game 2. But now if Ja's playing through injury, I just don't see the path for Memphis winning if he's not healthy. So that's really tough for me in that one. Denver looked awesome. I'm not really judging Denver until their next series. And that series is really fun too. So I don't think the East really matters until next round, because I think the next round, if we get Milwaukee, Cleveland, Boston, Philly, those are 4 really good teams. And I could see any of those 4 teams winning those series. The West feels wide open. I feel like you can almost talk yourself into anybody winning the West right now.
Yeah, what about the Kings?
Possibly.
Oh. I mean, I'm not saying they're your favorites, but like, I don't know, why not?
I mean, there's a path. I mean, they're really fast. They play at an insane pace, and it just seems like this fourth quarter Fox thing. De'Aaron Fox is really good in the fourth quarter. He's really tough to guard because the one thing I always felt about Fox is he's so fast, he's so quick. But I thought he, early in his career, he really struggled to use that speed to his advantage, because you just can't run as fast as you can and try and score in the NBA, because you're going to, lose control. He's really found a way to use that pace to his effectiveness advantage, and then also slow down to hit shots. And I think that's really transformed his game. The one thing I want to see about the Kings is, like, I want to see how because their defense wasn't good in the regular season. I want to see how they guard teams when they don't have the coach who just had the entire team's playbook, right? Like Mike Brown came from Golden State for a number of years. How are the Kings going to adjust when they got to play a team like the Lakers, who are a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger inside? How does that adjust their game plan?
It's definitely fun talking basketball with you, because like you have all this research and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, but the crowd's loud. You can't bet against that.
Yeah, there are some really good home court advantages in the West. Sacramento, those fans are going crazy. They're just so excited to see that team here. And the other one is Denver. Not only is it a good crowd, but they play the altitude advantage, I think, plays a part too in these series.
Yeah, very interesting with all that stuff. I was a big fan of De'Aaron. I watch a decent amount of Kentucky basketball because my grandparents went to Kentucky and they're huge. So I was a big fan of him back in his Kentucky days. It's cool to see him doing so well. And even Malik Monk's a player now. How did that happen?
Yeah, he had a couple good years in a row now, but he's really found himself in this playoff series, and a lot of it too comes down to, like, the Warriors have problem guarding people, and they already knew they were going to have a problem guarding Fox, which they're doing with Wiggins. But the problem is that their secondary defenders are even worse. Like, Gary Payton's fine, but Gary Payton's not an offensive threat. And whenever Monk is getting the ball against Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Dante DiVincenzo, Jordan Poole especially, Jordan Poole sucks this series because he can't guard anybody. He's just attacking, and he's getting to the basket at will against these guys because they can't guard him. They can't stay in front of him.
Yeah, interesting stuff. We'll see how it all plays out. We'll, at least make sure we touch on the hockey stuff week in and week out. Maybe some NBA at the end as well. Kyle, any final thoughts before we head out?
No, I think we just about covered everything.
Oh, did we lose Kyle? Lose Kyle right at the end? Oh man,
Oh,
what was he
I
going to
lost
say?
you
You
at
had
the
final
end.
thoughts, or maybe it's my end. Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat below if it's on my. Oh, Kyle, are you back? Oh, is he back? I can see him. Can he hear me?
Can you
Hello.
hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I don't
All
know.
right.
This thing, I thought I fixed it. Anyway,
Okay.
looking forward to the mock draft. That's all I said.
Yeah, mock draft next week. Make sure you're there, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Definitely check it out. And until next time, have a good one.
Peace.